Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation in Spain. Day 123 of the current situation, and I'll get into some of the news that has caught my attention over the last few days with regard to what's happening here in Spain. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last videos. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening as usual. A big thanks to all of the people that supported the channel through a small donation. You can see your names here. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big shout out to my patrons on Patreon for your support as usual. Thank you very much for that. Now, as I said, let's have a look at some of the news that has caught my attention over the last few days. And the Spanish government is working overtime to convince people that this is a safe country to visit this summer. And they have launched the Back to Spain campaign in order to attract international tourists in one of the months of the high season for tourism for Spain. And taking into account that foreigners are coming into the country in dribs and drabs due to the health situation, the government launched a campaign this Monday to attract these visitors and promote Spain as a safe destination. So the government's still optimistic that people will want to visit this country over the next few months during the summer period and save what has been up until now an absolutely terrible summer for the tourist sector in this country. But again, as we have seen, a lot of people still wary about traveling internationally this summer and of course putting their vacations on hold for better times. So we'll see what happens, but I'm not overly optimistic that it's going to be a good summer from a tourism point of view. Now, in a recent video, we saw images of drunk tourists going crazy in Mallorca. A couple of them were jumping on cars and we saw other loutish behavior. That has led to the Balearic government talking about tightening control in tourist centres like Magaluf and Arenal. The government says that they are going to tighten control in these areas where it will apply forceful measures to avoid images of crowds that put containment of the COVID-19 pandemic at risk. Now, we saw these images the other day and it was a terrible look, especially considering that there are parts of the country that are suffering with lockdowns, some areas going back to phase 2, which we'll have a look at in just a minute, and to see tourists blatantly disrespecting the rules and regulations, especially when it comes to wearing face masks and social distancing. Obviously, as I said, didn't do the reputation of the island any good, and it's not going to help that summer tourism campaign. So the government being forced to tighten the control in areas like Magaluf, which is something that needs to be done if we're going to be honest about it. Now, we also saw the other day the confusing situation in the Catalan region of Lerida or Lleida. We saw that the government in Catalonia wanted to confine the people of that city. A judge then came out and said that that was not legal, so everything there became very confusing. But yesterday, the Catalan government approved a decree to be able to confine Lerida despite the judicial veto. So in the end, the Catalan Premier, Mr. Torra, got his way, and he has been able to lock down or confine the people in that particular region. But it was confusing there for a couple of days, but apparently the Spanish government has supported Mr. Torra and have said that what he is doing is perfectly okay. And basically we get the idea that that is what the Spanish government wants. They don't want to go back to that central control that they had during the state of alarm and would much rather support people like Torra and other autonomous leaders here in Spain to be able to control the health situation from an autonomous community perspective rather than a national one. Now, some more bad news in Catalonia regarding the health situation, and it is that in one specific municipality south of Barcelona, in a place called Hospitalet, they have decided to confine 3 neighborhoods, or the people living in those neighborhoods. They have been recommended not to leave home. The Generalitat recommends not leaving home in these 3 particular neighborhoods. So we can see the problems in Catalonia slowly growing and now spreading to Greater Barcelona. Now, as predicted, more autonomous communities here in Spain have decided to make mask use mandatory. We can see here that Murcia, the Balearic Islands, Aragon, La Rioja, Andalusia have joined Catalonia and Extremadura in the application of the measure. Cantabria and Navarra will also incorporate the rule against coronavirus outbreaks throughout Spain. Now remember that these are areas where you must wear a mask at all times if you are in a public space, regardless of social distancing. Social distancing now does not come into the equation. It doesn't matter how few people are around you, you have to have a mask when you are in a public space or risk a fine of up to €100. So be warned again if you're coming to Spain that this is the case. And in one particular autonomous community, Andalusia, who approved this new rule yesterday, the local government there has now made it compulsory to wear masks even on walks along the beach and around swimming pools, or face fines of up to €100. However, you will not be required to wear a mask if you practice outdoor sports or if you go to restaurants and bars with your family or a group of people that you live with. And we can see here some more exceptions, for example, such as lying in the sun, not laying, doing sports, and other exceptions to the mandatory use of masks. People with respiratory problems or those who practice individual sports are not required to wear a mask. Now, if we have a look quickly at the mask wearing situation in Spain, we can see the map here. We have the yellow areas where it is mandatory at the moment. We have the orange areas where it is going to be mandatory. We have the blue areas where they are studying about whether to make it mandatory or not. We have the green areas where it is not mandatory, and the areas in purple are places where it is not obligatory in all of the autonomous community, but only in certain parts. So we can see there from that map that the use of masks here in Spain, mandatory in many places, and more places over the next couple of days or weeks will make the use of masks mandatory. Now, another area in Spain, that of Zaragoza, has gone back to phase 2. However, they're calling it a flexible phase 2, whatever that means. We can see here that Zaragoza, Huesca, the central region, and 4 eastern regions of Aragon pass to phase 2 flexible. The new measures seek to stop outbreaks in the community. Among them is the mandatory use of masks. Greater restrictions will be imposed on commerce, hotels, and cultural activities. So outbreaks in the country obviously starting to get a little bit out of control, and areas such as Zaragoza, and also as we have seen in other places in Spain, especially in Lerida, as we know, have gone back to confinement or back to a phase 2 situation, which is devastating for the local economy. Now, another piece of news that caught my attention is one here from El País, and it says that 40% of outbreaks are linked to family gatherings. Since the beginning of the de-escalation process, at least 105 infection clusters have been detected in the country, according to data collected by El País. We'll just have a look here quickly at the outbreak map again, and we can see where there are active outbreaks around the country. Galicia, the north of Spain, as we said the other day, very worrying, and we can see that the Mediterranean coast going from Girona to Barcelona down through Valencia, Murcia, and around to Andalusia, all very worrying at the moment. The Health Minister, Mr. Illa, pointed out this Tuesday that since the end of the de-escalation, there have been 171 outbreaks of the virus in Spain, of which 120 are still active, and there are 2,139 cases amongst people with an average age of less than 50. So again, as I've stressed in other videos, if you're coming to Spain or living in Spain, important to adhere to the rules. Family gatherings, as we saw, one of the main reasons for outbreaks. People not respecting social distancing, the typical hugs and kisses, all of those things that families do when they come together, not wearing masks, and as we saw in places like Zaragoza, falling back into phase 2. Places in Andalusia are also now making it compulsory to wear masks. So unfortunately, we seem to be slipping backwards instead of going forwards in the fight against this virus at the moment. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from the last video. First one here from Nikita. I live in Spain. If it's mandatory to wear a mask, then I'll have to leave the country. It's awful to wear a mask in 40-degree heat, and it's not healthy to inhale your own moist exhalation. They must soon stop this hysteria. Yeah, Nikita, thanks for the comment, and sorry to see that you're going to have to leave the country because the use of masks is not going to go away soon. I don't think the government's going to change the situation because people like you can't conform to wearing a mask. I agree that they're not the most comfortable things to wear, but they seem to be the only way to stop the spread of this virus at the moment, because if it keeps spreading, we're going to go back into lockdown, and that's something that we need to avoid. So if it means putting a mask on, if it means keeping away from other people, if it means social distancing, whatever it takes, in my opinion. One here from John. If people wear masks, then the law enforcement should wear them too. It's like a double standard. Yeah, John, thanks for the comment. To be honest, all of the police officers that I have seen are wearing masks. Even when they're inside vehicles, they're driving around this particular area with masks on. The Civil Guard are wearing masks. National Police are wearing masks. Local police are wearing masks, so I don't know where you are to be seeing police that are not wearing masks. And a couple of the comments to this comment also said that the police in their area are wearing masks. So not really sure about the comment because, as I said, all of the police that I have seen are wearing masks. So no double standard as far as I'm concerned. One here from Catherine. Thanks again for the informative video. Really look forward to it. Was appalled to see the video clip you showed of Brits behaving so badly in Magaluf. No wonder no one wants British tourists. Maybe now it's time for Spain to start changing its image, get rid of the cheap booze yob culture. Spain needs tourists, but not people like that. Yeah, Catherine, thanks for the comment. Couldn't agree more. Unfortunately, both go hand in hand. Spain is a country that sells cheap alcohol. You can go to a supermarket and pick up a bottle of whiskey for around 6 or 7 euros if you buy one of the supermarket brands. You can go to bars and get alcohol fairly cheap. You can go to restaurants and buy a bottle of wine with your meal for a very cheap price compared to what you pay in other countries. For example, you can get a bottle here in Spain for what you pay for a glass of wine in Australia. So that puts it into perspective, and of course the government here is not going to increase prices because that will affect local consumption of alcohol, and it's something obviously that local people don't want to see happen. They don't want to be paying more for those things because some people can't control their drinking, and basically that's the problem. People just can't control their alcohol consumption, and that's what we see in a lot of tourist resorts, that people just can't drink responsibly. One here from Alex. Hi Stuart, great informative video. Thanks. We are meant to be coming to Barcelona Sitges next week. Given the current situation, what do you think the chances of a local lockdown is in Catalonia? Also, is the anti-British sentiment confined to the party towns or in the cities and surrounding areas as well? Yeah, Alex, thanks for the comment. The situation in Catalonia is looking a bit dodgy at the moment. Regarding Sitges, I'm not exactly sure on what the situation is there, but I think you should be okay for the next couple of weeks. Regarding the anti-British sentiment, I think it's only in places where it's out of control, places like Magaluf, as we saw the other day, and places where people don't respect the local rules and regulations, especially groups of people that get a little bit out of control. There's various places around Spain where it happens. Magaluf is just one of them. There's other places on the Catalan coast as well, other places on the Valencian coast, the Alicante coast, because it's the type of tourism that they have fermented over the years. Party tourism, alcohol tourism, call it what you like, but I think in general there is not a widespread anti-British sentiment in this country, at least in my opinion. But if you're British and living in Spain, let us know. One here from Strapman. I have just read in the Canarian press that the health minister of the Canaries is going to ask the Canaries government on Thursday to bring in a law to make the wearing of face masks compulsory at all times in public, whether indoors or outdoors, irrespective of whether or not you can social distance. This is in line with many other places in Spain, such as Catalonia, the Balearics, Extremadura, Andalusia, Aragon, and more. From comments I have had from locals, most are in agreement with this because of the worry of tourists, especially Brits, of which I am one but resident, infecting the relatively COVID-19 free islands. Yes, Strapman, thanks for the comment. We saw on the map before that there are various areas in Spain that are planning on making it compulsory to wear masks, as you said, irregardless of social distancing. The Canary Islands, of course, is one of those. Where I am here in Madrid, there's no talk of it yet, but I'm sure it's going to be put on the agenda in the next few days or weeks. And you're right, the idea is to keep the numbers of outbreaks down, to keep the numbers of infections down, and if it means wearing a mask, well, that's what people are going to have to do. Unfortunately, as we have seen in various countries, and even reading the comments on the videos that I put out, the use of wearing masks or not has become a political topic. Unfortunately, I can't see why, and as we have seen in some places around the world, not mentioning any names, the situation regarding this virus is extremely out of control at the moment, so just easier to put a mask on, as I have said. One here from Tomo. Great vlog, Stuart. On the point of British on the beer, the Spanish will never stop it because we spend lots of euros, always have, always will. Cheers, keep safe, mate. Yeah, Tomo, thanks for the comment. I agree, it's about the money. It's about the money that people spend when they come here. Alcohol is, of course, one of the biggest expenses for a lot of people. Nightlife, partying, all of those things, and Spain has built up a reputation over the last 20, 30, even 40 years as a party country, or at least certain places in the country have that reputation. And I don't think it's going to stop, even though, as we saw, the Balearic Islands is planning on cracking down. It's going to continue, but of course maybe with a few restrictions for the next couple of years. One here from Deborah. I'm starting to get nervous now. I have a flight booked from Bristol to Bilbao for the 4th of August. Not coming on holiday, but to live. I've rented a flat in Vitoria-Gasteiz, almost sold all my furniture and halfway through packing. The removal company is booked for the last week of July. Seeing all those drunken idiots from the UK totally flouting the rules, I'm so worried there will be a ban on people from the UK before I can get there. I live in West Wales and people are really responsible here. I'll be really upset if those idiots disrupt my plans. I have masks ready and I'm totally prepared to follow the rules. I speak Spanish already and I'm learning Euskera, so I hope the comments by people who say foreigners aren't welcome aren't going to apply to me. Yeah, Deborah, thanks for the comment. Don't worry, they're not going to apply to you. If you go to a place like Vitoria, which is a fantastic little city up there in the Basque Country, you should be welcomed, you should feel comfortable as long as you abide by the rules. As we saw, the people that are not respected are the ones that come here and show loutish behavior, flaunt the rules, flaunt the regulations, basically don't give a stuff about anybody but themselves. Those are the people that should be banned, but people like yourself, obviously no. So don't worry about it. Come here and enjoy your life in Spain. And one here from David. Small businesses are the ones that suffer the most. I'm afraid lockdown is not an option, but rather controlling the crowds of irresponsible people, no matter where they come from. That will be a must. Yeah, David, thanks for the comment and good point. You're right. I think we need to control the people that are not being responsible, if that's possible, because sometimes there's just too many people to control, as we saw the other day in places like Magaluf. As I have seen around the place, groups of people getting together. There's been numerous accounts of people doing botellones, people having illegal parties, family gatherings, as we saw before. And obviously for some reason it's very difficult to control. Maybe there's just not enough police out and about. Maybe there's too many people being irresponsible. But at the end of the day, that's what we have to try to get into people's heads, that they need to be responsible, because for the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to be for everybody in the long run, unfortunately. And as we have seen, lockdowns are still not out of the question, and going back into a phase stage is also a possibility. And you're right, it is terrible for small businesses, and many small businesses are just not going to be able to survive another lockdown, unfortunately. So again, we're going to have to be responsible. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. See you in the next one. Hasta luego.